Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson and hello, Jennifer Duke.
Hello, Michael.
Jen, on weekdays, it's all about the Fast 5, which is the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. On the weekend, we still keep it very close to 5 minutes. It wouldn't be the Fast 5 if we didn't, but we're going to pick out the biggest story of the week and the most remarkable story and the sleeper story, which is one that we think is kind of flying under the radar a little bit, and then our favourite story. So let's jump into it. What do you think was the biggest story this week?
So my biggest story for the week was the economy and the latest data that we've got about it, and in particular, the rising cost of petrol. So it's been about a 9% jump at the pump on the back of a global oil supply crunch. We've been talking a lot about the international reasons for that. And this is a major contributor to the latest inflation figures. So we know that crushing inflation is the priority of the Reserve Bank at the moment, and their decisions to increase interest rates is the reason that mortgages are so much more expensive. But the latest data gave us some pretty bad news. So inflation accelerated for the first time in 4 months, and petrol was largely to blame for that. People were really concerned about a potential extra rate rise on the back of it, but economists are trying to soothe those nerves, explaining that the RBA looks through the volatile figures and to the underlying inflation data, which isn't showing the same acceleration. We've only got 3 cash rate meetings until the end of the year, and one of them on Tuesday. And the state of the economy right now and what it means for households and businesses is the biggest story of the week.
Yeah, that is a big story. For me, it was the massive week that we had in politics. There are a couple of elements to this. We started the week with the release of the employment white paper, and in a nutshell, there was a bunch of directions, 31 future reform directions, a national skills passport, changing the work bonus for pensioners and for veterans, and reforming programs to help job seekers, all this kind of stuff, which is geared towards preparing the workforce for the economy of the future, looking ahead kind of 10 years and saying we need a lot more people working in the digital and technology space. We're going to need a lot more people in clean energy workforce. We're going to need a heap of people in the care and support economy, because our population is aging, and that's what this report is designed to do, help with that reform and get us to that point. A couple of other quick things that happened in politics this week. Michael Pizzullo, who's one of the most powerful public servants in the country, has stood aside and been referred to the Public Service Commission after 9 newspapers revealed a huge number of text messages that suggested he may have been attempting to influence political outcomes behind the scenes when public servants are meant to be apolitical. And the other big one was in state politics, the resignation of Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews. Jacinta Allen took over following Dan Andrews stepping down, but it just shows that we've had a lot of change over the last few years. When you think back to that national cabinet from a few years ago during all the COVID lockdown periods, there's only 2 of them left.
Huge week in politics.
It certainly has been. Most remarkable. Can I nominate one for this?
Go for it.
Look, to me, it was the insight that we received into the culture of PwC Australia. We've been talking about the tax leak scandal for a long time, but we got an insight this week into the culture that allowed that to actually happen. The background obviously goes back kind of 10 years, a former partner breaching confidentiality agreements with the government, sharing those details of upcoming tax changes that they'd consulted on, giving them to colleagues who then used that info to help their clients. PwC, as part of this fallout, has engaged Dr. Ziggy Switkowski to review the company's culture and governance. 90 partners and senior executives interviewed, whole heap of other staff contributed. End result, it was revealed to be a high-performance, results-focused culture that was used as an excuse to justify poor behaviour. The people who brought in the most money were considered untouchables. They were considered rainmakers. There was a whatever-it-takes attitude. It was a pretty stark statement of the culture of PwC, of how this thing actually happened, and it shows the scale of the reputational damage that has been done, Jen.
It was a massive story. So my most remarkable was the US Federal Trade Commission's case against retail and media giant Amazon. So the FTC, along with 17 states, is suing Amazon for being a monopoly and using its powers to do all sorts of market manipulative things. They're alleging that Amazon has driven up fees to the point that many sellers see 50 cents in every dollar of their revenue extracted by Amazon. They're also saying that it penalizes sellers that are aggressively discounting their products by leaving them almost invisible in search results and forcing them to pay for advertising while consumers are shifted towards more expensive goods. This is a landmark case in the US, and it comes straight after that antitrust case that was launched the week before against Google. Amazon says, though, that the case is wrong on the facts and the law.
This is a remarkable story in every sense. Now, sleeper story, what have you picked out that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit?
So mine was all about battery fires because the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission this week raised concerns about a huge rise in product recalls and fires caused by lithium-ion batteries. Now, in the first 8 months, we've had 165 fires this year caused by products with those batteries in them. That's more than all of last year put together, and it means that the ACCC wants national regulation. And also this week in the news cycle, we saw the temporary fascination of a huge fire at one of Queensland's first large-scale Tesla battery storage sites, and it kicked off a political fight. So National Senator Matt Canavan used the incident to say that the new energy grid is worse than the old one. And Chris Bowen, the energy minister, hit back on X, saying that the coalition will find any reason to have a go at renewable energy. This issue is only going to get bigger, and that made it my sleeper story of the week.
Yeah, look, we're nearly out of time. Can I nominate a favourite story? I'm fascinated by the point at which business and politics meet. And we've seen that playing out in the US this week, and both of them, funnily enough, in relation to the automotive sector. So Ford is pausing its construction of a $3.5 billion plant in Michigan, a plant that's supposed to be making electric vehicle batteries. No planned timeline for the work to resume. It may not even resume. There's no guarantee. The reason that it was paused is very political. It's because Ford was going to use technology from a Chinese company, and relations between the US and China have obviously been a little bit strained of late. But that wasn't the biggest example this week of politics and business coming together. The United Auto Workers in the US have been striking lately, and this week they gained a very high-profile supporter in US President Joe Biden. He joined the picket line, he wore a union-branded baseball cap, and he urged them to stick with it, as in the strike action, and said he backed their calls for a 40% pay rise. 40%. Can you imagine if you were the boss of General Motors or Stellantis or Ford at the moment? This is unprecedented for a sitting US president to join a picket line like this, and the level of support that he is showing for striking workers is really quite remarkable and probably shows just how much he wants that union endorsement for the 2024 election campaign.
Huge story.
Yeah, it certainly is. All right, there we go. 5 minutes and pretty much everything you need to know in the world of business. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks so much, Michael.
That was Jennifer Duke, economics correspondent for Capital Brief. We'll be back on Monday morning with the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Don't forget to hit follow and join us online on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook and X. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed.